Come on in.
We're live now.
Awesome. No worries. Good evening. I am calling to order the Cumberland Town Council meeting of Monday, February 27th, 2023. First order of business is the approval of minutes from February 13th, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favor? Thank you. Before we jump to manager's report, though not an official agenda item, did want to take a moment to recognize the passing of a very important and impactful citizen for Cumberland. So I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Eads.
This past week, I had the honor of attending the funeral for Harlan Story. And having grown up with the Story family, it brought back a lot of memories. Your dad surely gave us so much to this town, not only through his family, but his service to the town of Cumberland. And, I mentioned to the chairwoman that I thought it'd be proper for us to say a couple words to get this meeting started before we went into the regular agenda. And what I'd like to do is maybe, Bill, if you say a couple words, and then we'll pass it on to Shirley. I know you.
All right, thanks for the blind side, but sure.
Well-
I was sitting here listening to you, Mike, and I'm saying, wow. As you guys know, Harlan was on the committee that hired me. And I worked with Harlan when I was also in Yarmouth as their town engineer, and we'd always shoot the breeze during the week when he was at the bus garage driving bus for Yarmouth at the time, and he was always deep into politics, and he was a huge mentor to me. What I didn't say at the funeral is that he stayed on the council an extra 3 years when I came. He promised me, he said he's going to watch out for me because he wanted people to give me a chance and to work with me, not against me. And that really meant a lot to me, and I don't think I could have said that last week without breaking up, because he was a good person. He was a good friend. He was a mentor, and he was somebody that cared so much about this community. And as I said at the funeral, when you measure your town service in decades, 3 decades, how do you compare that? How do you? There's no measuring stick to say this. This is good, but it's not quite this good. And he was amazing. And 30 years plus of service to this community, and he still served on the Shellfish Commission afterwards, because that was very, very important to him. And he'd come and yell at you when we messed some policy up and we had to fix it because of Harlan. So I never met a man that right to the end had his memory about just about every council meeting. He could remember, and he'd say, I think you might want to check the records back in 68 or 75, or it didn't matter what year it was. He was within months of getting that date right. So yeah, for me last week was a tough week, but was special because what Shirley organized that day was really a celebration of his life, which was really cool. And although we can't tell the Robert Story story on television about the hunting episode with Harlan, it was a great day, and I think he would have been very proud and would have been very happy with the way he was recognized, and his legacy will be around for many, many, many years to come. So, thank you, Mike, for allowing me to jump in, and really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill. And I remember walking into the celebration of life, and I made a comment about it being a funeral, and 2 guys said to me, "This is not a funeral. This is a celebration of life." And you really did, just driving up to the funeral or the celebration of life and driving home, I just kept looking. His fingerprints are here. His fingerprints are over here and over here. And the legacy he left is just amazing. Shirley, I'm going to put you on the spot.
I was not prepared for this. I had written down some remarks to share at the end of the town council meeting, when if I got tearful, that would be forgiven, and no, people would have stopped watching by then. It was an incredible week. He lived an amazing life. He left an amazing legacy. I remember trying to deliver his resignation from the Shellfish Commission letter. And then, so I brought it up to the town office, and then it wasn't accepted. They said, I said, well, he can't drive anymore. That's all right, we'll pick him up. You know, and so he stayed on the Shellfish Commission until the very end. I don't know if we replaced him yet.
Not yet.
No. And he was my go-to for, like you said, he remembered everything. There's no way I have that kind of memory. There's no way. Part of it is just sheer laziness on my part. We can pick up a phone and look up, like, does the town manager have to live in Cumberland? Well, you know, we look it up. And I said I didn't think so, but, you know, those kind of things, he would know right off what it is and what it wasn't. I got tearful a couple of times during the celebration. One of them was when, not expected by me, we had the hearse drive down Middle Road and stop at home, and the dog sniffed him, and the tractor was there, but I wasn't ready for the police escort front and back. You know, that sort of dedication, and that the town staff would think that that's really important, or to come out of the funeral and see both the chiefs, you know, Dan and Chip standing there helping with the day. I'll have more to say at the end, but I don't think the loss has set in for me yet. We've had, well, my son Josh would say, bad month in our household. Bad month. But, you know, we're all plugging ahead because there's a job to be done. That's the first thing. I was not going to speak at his funeral. And then I thought about him and what he'd say, and like, it's not about you. You gotta get the job done. It's about getting the job done. So here we are. Let's get the job done tonight, folks. Thanks for nothing, Michael.
Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity.
Hey, my pleasure. That we will move to manager's report.
Okay, me
Yeah.
again.
Job at hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to just extend a thank you to our outstanding Public Works crew. They've had a pretty interesting winter, and we've had a lot of success with the molasses and salt mixture. It really has worked very well. Ron has sent a picture, said I'm putting him out of business, so knock it off.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for nothing.
thanks for nothing.
My car's gonna rot right out.
Well, it's the molasses won't get to it, it's the salt. But they have done a great job this winter. We've got 3 storms this week, so please be patient. We have been shorthanded, and the guys have all pulled together. Chris, you've done an outstanding job leading that group, and thank you. It's not easy, it really isn't, so thanks, I really appreciate it. We also did want to report, there's been some emails going around over the weekend related to the cutting at Twin Brooks. I know Councilor Filson was on a few of those emails. Our plan has always been to kind of finish section 1. It wasn't a lot of wood, and we weren't sure if Jeff Story was going to cut it or not, so we haven't marked it, to be honest with you. It'll be marked this week. Jeff said he's going to try, but it's 50-50 depending on the weather. He's not going to go in there and, you know, muck it all up if it gets warm too quickly. So there's only 15, 20 cords tops in there. We're working with Paul Laverriere, our forester. He'll be marking it this week and basically reporting to the state before we start that process. We signed an extension of last year's contract for this small amount, and Jeff signed it, I signed it today, and it'll be done before, you know, the end of the fiscal year, by the end of June. And then after that, the new process will basically fall into place, essentially just like any other of the town forests. They'll basically get 2 or 3 proposals from people that are interested in the wood and see where we can go. But what I will tell the council is that please never pay for that type of service. Please don't. Please make sure that the wood you take out at least pays for your expenses, because if you're not doing that, then don't do it. It's not worth it. That's why we had a long-term agreement with Jeff. Jeff was doing very light touches on the forest. It worked out well for him because he was right there. He didn't have to hire trucking and all the other things that have to happen with the other groups. And we also don't want to get what we got in the town forest. We don't want those type of cuts. These are for recreational areas, not for big, lots of wood lots in the back 40 somewhere. So just be careful moving forward, because I'm a little nervous because of what we're going to see this summer related to the invasives report and where not to cut. And they're right. We don't want to cut in an area where we have invasives and let the whole forest get contaminated. So we really got to come up with a strategy to manage that. Chris is here tonight. I'm sorry, I keep pointing at you, Chris, but the cameras can't see you in the back row. But his crew now, we've got 3 licensed sprayers on the Valhalla team, so they'll be spraying this September, and we'll be working directly with Paul Leverrier to attack the most critical areas that the LCC comes up with for management hopefully by this summer, so we'll have a plan. We really have to spray right around Labor Day or late September at the very latest to be effective. So we're hoping we can get our grinder in there, cut the buckthorn especially down, and get it ready for spray treatment sometime in mid-September. And that's what we're planning for right now, but we won't know more until Paul has a chance to finish his report. So I don't know if I've missed anything. You did a great job explaining it, Tig. I think when I read it online, it was exactly the way I remembered it as well, and I think we're in good shape to finish that up.
The only other thing that I would add is that I know the forestry subcommittee was hoping for us to do a walkthrough with them of the forests, maybe sometime in the early spring. We're meeting on Wednesday, so I can follow up with Gordon, and if folks are interested in doing that walkthrough, we can get that arranged to see it, right?
Yep. No, I think that would be a good thing to do, and I think you'd be pretty impressed. I'd walk this forest and then that forest and see what the difference is, because it is a big difference.
Great. Awesome.
And that's all I have,
That's you?
sorry.
No, all good. Thank you. Next is public discussion. Public discussion is for comments on items that are not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Rebuttal comments will be limited to 2 minutes. Public discussion topics may be brought up again under new business for further council discussion. Is there anyone here from the public this evening?
Shirley, first, I just want to say, your dad was a really special guy. I always respected him. He always disagreed with me with humor, and I hope your family finds some peace.
Thank you.
So my name is Chris Nagel.
Chris, can you pull the microphone a little bit closer just for folks at home?
Hold on a sec. I want to respect your time limit. Okay. My name is Chris Nagel. I live at 76 Orchard Road. Most of you know about me or know me, but for those who don't, I have been in this town for about 35 years, and the kids went to school here. I've lived in West Cumberland. I love it out there, and served 12 years on the planning board, which was a lot of fun. So I came here in 2015 asking town to remove a stop sign that is on Blanchard Road Extension. And for those of you that are listening or don't know what I'm talking about, let me get you out there first and then bring you back. Okay, if you go out Blanchard Road past the fairground and you go straight, don't go left on Skillen down to Cop. You can go straight on Blanchard Road Extension and see the new subdivisions in our town, or you can turn right on Orchard Road up the hill toward the orchards. And so when you're coming back the other way from either Orchard Road or from Blanchard Road Extension, you're coming back to center of town, you come to Skillen Road out to the Cops and you have to stop, even though it's a road coming in from your right. There's 100 other roads coming in from your right, and Cumberland is the only one that has a stop sign. So I always thought it was silly. I've been driving through it for most of those 36 years. And in 2015, the town hired an engineer, and he recommended you take it down. Did not comply with national and state standards. And for political reasons, based on the amount of people that knew about what was going on, the council made what had to be a largely political decision, in my view, to disagree with its own engineer and just leave the stop sign there. So I'd like to put it back on the agenda. There's at least 4 new counselors. There's at least 2 that voted against it last time, so I know where I stand. But I do think there's a little bit of difference of science. I don't want to get into it now, but it has more to do with which one stops the least and less to do with who goes which way the most. I would only request or want to make sure, my biggest problem is making sure that people who live on the other end of town get notice of this meeting should you choose to take it on an agenda and eventually hold a public hearing. How do you do that, or 1 or 2 meetings is up to you. I have a presentation that will take about 10 minutes. I'm not an engineer, but I don't think this is above the pay grade for most people that know a little bit about science. So I'm going to encourage you to follow the science and not let neighborhoods decide traffic policy. So with that, my only request at this point is to at least get the matter on a council agenda, whether it's for a preliminary meeting or a public hearing. I'll let you all decide. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Chris. Just, go ahead.
Chris, would you advocate to remove both of those stop signs, the one on Orchard Road and the one that abuts Skillen Road?
No, no. I think the one coming in from Skillen Road is essential. It's been there a long time. As you and I know, once upon a time, that was the main way, but that all ended 10 or 15 years ago. So, no, the traffic engineers are pretty clear. That one should stay. They analyzed 1 stop sign, 2 stop signs, which we have now, and they said that doesn't work, and then 3 stop signs, and they said, no, that doesn't work.
So you would advocate to have a stop sign on the Blanchard Road extension piece?
No.
No,
he's
no
saying
stop
keep
sign.
Skillen, so you're coming this way.
This is Orchard Road. This is the stop sign. This is Blanchard Road extension up
Yep.
here.
Yep.
This is
It's not
Skillen.
by Orchard Road, though. We're not talking at Orchard Road.
No, not this.
Not
one.
the Orchard Road, Blanchard Road extension intersection. That was another political debate I'm glad I wasn't a
This is
part
what
of.
he wants to take out.
But he wants this, so there's a stop sign
This is
from
stop.
Skillen.
Right, stop
That
here.
one, he wants, that one, the engineering report said keep that in, because that's the T. So that one,
Take this one out.
yes, take that one out.
I got it.
Yeah, there'll be,
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, go ahead.
No, I'll just throw out, I know that the study by the engineers is now, what, almost 7, 8 years old. I know a lot has changed in commuting patterns and also even kind of people driving their kids to school at a higher rate than used to. I think a lot has changed since that study was done, and so I guess my question would be is how expensive or time intensive is it to update that to get a more current view of actual commuting patterns and traffic patterns? We've had additional construction in all of those areas coming from Orchard and Blanchard Extension that were not there 8 years ago. And so thoughts on that, of time and cost to update that?
I think the traffic counts would be valuable just to compare the two, to see what it was in 2015 to 2023. What I would recommend is that let us get through the winter season, so we're not making any changes until pavement conditions are dry. Typically, if the council chooses to change traffic at any intersection, there are warning signs put up. We do it for a longer period of time, new traffic pattern ahead signs. You guys have seen these all over the place. So those are the types of things we do. I think it'd be less than $2,000 to do another traffic study. They basically go out there during the peak hours and count the left turns, the right turns, and and then give us any recommendations. I don't think the engineer's decision is going to change much. I think the bigger issue is that those who have been around for a long period of time kind of remember when Skillens Road was almost a merge onto Blanchard Road, and Blanchard Road Extension used to kind of come in at the top of that curve. So when that intersection got all changed, that's when that first stop sign came in, and honestly, I was curious on why it was there myself. So I don't know why, but when the folks came from the neighborhood and talked to the council at the time, they felt very strongly that that stop sign should stay. I look at it as a concern, a lot of the speeding and the traffic and those type of things. So I think we'll hear a lot of the same type of things. I don't think the engineering report will change very much, but I would encourage you to give us a little bit of time, and maybe the first May meeting we could hold the public hearing. And if you want you want all of West Cumberland noticed, we don't typically notice people for council meetings. We have done it for neighborhood meetings, and I don't know if you want to do a neighborhood meeting before a council meeting or do it part of as a public hearing and a council meeting. It's really your call.
Bill, did this recently come up? For whatever reason, I'm thinking that the same issue came up recently in the last couple of years. I may be mistaken.
Not at this intersection. We've had other intersections. We had the intersection at Middle Road and Tuttle Road. That'll be back. The states, if you can believe this, the states are looking at a four-way intersection there to slow the speed down because of the high accident rate and the high, really bad accidents that have been happening there. They also came in, Mike, you remember, they came in at Skill and Blackstrap and Route 100. The state came down and wanted to put a four-way stop sign there, and that's when we've been trying to push for the roundabout. So we've had them around town in different areas that people have come in to see the council, and it seems like about every 3 or 4 years a new intersection pops up.
Thank you.
I think we did get some feedback or concerns on more the speeding in exactly that area. So
Right.
I think it will be interesting of, like, even I think about the community survey too, Blanchard Road came up a lot where folks were concerned with speed and.
Well,
outside
we're
the
doing a
front.
lot of work this summer to the Main Street,
Yep.
Tuttle Road, Blanchard Road, the kind of the more dense section of the village. We'll be making changes there with pedestrian warning signals and more visible pedestrian crossings. Down at the library as well, we've had complaints. So it's gonna, I think it'll continue, but this issue we dealt with, as Chris described, very thoroughly in 2015, and we had at least 2 meetings before the council meeting. So.
Yep. But I think regardless of not getting an update until the spring makes sense too, just thinking about commuting patterns these days, and as we are in the winter months, depending on when regardless of pavement, I don't think you'd get a true kind of count of
Yeah.
traffic levels in the winter if more folks are staying at home, working from home versus in the spring going back into the office, so.
No, we can do that fairly quickly, and I think the comparison would be interesting for the council to see what type of increase in traffic we've seen out there as well.
Just in general.
Well, thank you very much. All I would add is I think I'm just trying to make the intersection work as efficiently as possible, according to the science. And if you guys are going to do a new traffic study and we can all see it and have a meeting about it sometime this spring, I'm happy about that. So thank you very much for listening and having a good discussion about, let's get to the bottom of it. Try again.
Thanks, Chris. All right. Next is legislation and policy. 23-015, to hold a public hearing to consider and act on the formation of an affordable housing TIF district as recommended by the TIF committee, has been tabled for a later meeting. Right, we don't have to.
Madam Chair,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Madam Chair, I move to table that.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. 23-016, to forward to the planning board for a public hearing and recommendation, the readoption of the February 22, 2016 version of the Route 1 design standards as recommended by the town attorney. Anything worth? Important to note.
It's I want to say housekeeping, but it's a little bit more than that. In 2014, the council adopted a set of guidelines for Route 1. And in 2016, those guidelines got condensed to become basically design standards, which were required to be adhered to. Unfortunately, only the planning staff had those updated in their books. We never updated them online in all the blue thick ordinance books, and none of the other books in the building got updated. So we were dealing with an issue on Route 1 just recently, and a citizen was quoting a section to me, and his book and my book were totally different. What was happening is the applicants were giving the correct set of rules, but nothing online or nothing essentially in all the books we have behind you and in most of the departments were ever updated. When I met with Natalie Burns, our town attorney who does all our planning board work, she said it might be best if the council just endorsed this tonight to readopt the 2016 version of the Route 1 design standards and get those posted online immediately. So we're here basically groveling to say we messed up and we need to fix this, so.
Any question? Go ahead, Shirley.
Quick question. Did we update, or did you, we update the ambiguous language that was like the shall or the may to must? That was one of the things we talked about with the attorney, like
what-
some of,
What was adopted
in the
was
design standards, there were some things, there was some wording that was sort of wishy-washy.
So in your packets, there was the 2016 version. It was really shrunk down from the original design guidelines were,
Okay.
I don't know, 50, 60 pages. And I think some of that language did get cleaned up, but
We
also,
do have it coming again if
These
we,
design-
after it goes to the planning
These
board, so.
design standards
I
shall
can
be
double-check then.
used by the planning board, it
Yeah.
says.
yeah,
The first paragraph, so,
yeah.
it says
so-
shall.
Yeah,
In section 507, it says lighting shall be substantially
well, shall
reduced.
is a little better than
May.
should or
Possibly
may.
could.
What did you do for work?
You know, we had design standards should be met. Well, yeah, they should be met, and there are a lot of whole lot of shouldas in the world, but,
I see a lot of shells here,
okay,
not seashells.
thank you.
But it will be back to you, again, we're sending this to, I think, to the planning board for a public hearing and recommendation again, so I can take my punishment one more time, so.
I'll make your motion.
Is there anyone from the public to discuss? I'll take your motion.
I move to forward to the planning board for a public hearing and recommendation, the readoption of the February 22nd, 2016 version of the Route 1 design standards as recommended by the town attorney.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, here's a doozy. 23-017, to forward to the planning board for a public hearing and recommendation, amendments to Chapter 315 zoning, Article 4 lot regulations, to add Section 33.1, effect of demolition of dwelling units, and update lot densities 31510, 31511, 31516, 31517, 315-18, and 315-20. These will clarify minimum lot area per dwelling unit and add 315-17E LDR to include design standards for multiplexes, and 315-14 definition for shed, and 315-45 section for conversions, A, A3, and A4B as recommended by the ordinance committee. Shirley.
I told you about this last meeting. Were you paying attention?
You did.
No, this is where we're looking at density requirements to help match up with the new legislation or moving legislation. We would like to get this to the planning board, get their feedback, have it ready for adoption, depending on where state legislation lands. Some of these will go through without an issue, like I think the design standard ones won't be an issue. If you're putting a multiplex that faces Route 1 on either side of Route 1, it needs to meet design standards, that kind of thing. Other things, you know, I thought we were all right with tiny homes and sheds, and then I came across an advertisement for tiny homes of Maine, and I thought, oh no, would those be allowed in Cumberland? So I think there's going to be some discussion about those things coming down the road. But the first step is to get it to the planning board, get their feedback, give you some time to think about the size, the density requirements, where you really feel we should be as a community on those. So that's where we're at. Anything else?
I think our zoning ordinances are in great shape. I think we do a lot of work to keep them current. I think the ordinance committee has done a lot of work over the years to follow the science. Essentially, they basically have got good setbacks. We're not being defined by a one-size-fits-all type zoning. We have a zoning that fits our community and has been supported by our last 3 or 4 comp plans. So for me, I think we're in good shape. This isn't going to hurt us. I think, like Shirley said, the one ordinance that we did change that I think I might wait a little bit on is the ADU, the accessory dwelling units, because those are all driven by the new standards. And our ordinances before were like they were required owner occupancy. The new state laws don't require owner occupancy. We required an additional parking space there. So, you know, you're not parking all over the place or having to be on the street when we have to plow snow. And there were a couple of other things, separation and those type of things that the town attorney was okay with, but I'm not sure the council will want to change if they don't have to. So I think that one might be worthwhile waiting. The rest of it, I think, like Shirley said, is just really almost cleaning up our ordinance a little bit. It's more housekeeping than anything and will not have a significant impact. And I think people have to be careful thinking that, you know, once July 1st rolls around, they're going to be able to, split their lot 4 times. Well, yes, you can if you have a lot that meets the standards. And those standards require setbacks, they require sewer in most cases, and they require compliance with the current zoning ordinance. It just doesn't throw our zoning out the window just because this new state law is adopted. So we'll have a lot of discussions, I'm sure, and I'm sure there are a lot of folks that are interested to see what we're doing. But if you look at our ordinance now, if it's allowable now, it'll be allowable on July 1st. That's the best I can tell you. I think we've done a really good job with our ordinance, and I think we should be proud for the sets of rules we've designed because they fall in lockstep with our comprehensive plans.
Any other questions or comments before it moves?
Just one comment, and that is about the demolition piece of it. I think that any community that's trying to preserve its heritage and is concerned about old housing stock, this is another piece that goes well with our zoning ordinance and
Absolutely.
provides a little bit of protection for our housing stock.
Absolutely.
And that piece is that the Historical Society is notified when demolition permits come in the door. And that's been done long before the ordinance was codified, so our staff recognize that as well. Bill and Christina and Carla all care very much about that.
I will take a motion.
Want me to read the whole thing?
No, you don't
You
I
know.
just read the whole
He
thing.
said no.
I move the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Thank you. Next is 23-018, to consider and act on approval of a use of policy for the Valhalla Recreation Center. So just quickly a reminder for folks that this is the property we purchased last year. It was owned by the Maine State Golf Association, attached to what is Rachel's and the golf, kind of where you buy your tee times and kind of the golf pro shop. And so we've been in there. How long have we been in there? Since the summer?
No,
Fall.
this fall.
Fall.
November, I believe.
And so kind of wanted to get something in paper to be clear of kind of what is the use policy, any fees associated with it, and just kind of have this in clear writing for the public as well as our staff. How else
And-
would you want to,
Yeah.
or do you want me to throw it over to?
Yeah, Patty Murphy is here tonight. She is the architect, so if you hate it, then she's the one to throw the darts at. So.
Beep, beep,
She has
that's the
done a
best, Patty.
phenomenal job in putting this together. Chris Bolduc, our assistant manager, has kind of led this charge and led the construction down there and the cleanup. Patty has done a great job tonight and wants to walk you through the use policy as well as some of the fees that the group has put together. Don't throw the javelin. She is the messenger tonight. So we had a lot of discussion, and even from getting to a recreation center versus a banquet center, there was a lot of discussion around that, and Patty will share some of that as she goes through her presentation. So, Patty?
Thank you, Bill. We were tasked with coming up with some usage guidelines for what was once the Valhalla Golf and Banquet Center, and we have decided to call it the Cumberland Recreation Center. And over the next several slides, I'll outline some usage and rental guidelines for the facility. For those of you who have not been inside the Recreation Center, this is a sample of what it looks like actually very recently when it was set up for an event. We have been working on renovations. All the interior painting is done. There's still lots of other things to be done, but this is what it's looking like right now. And so now moving on to what we see happening at the Recreation Center. Town of Cumberland functions and meetings, town council and regional community meetings, town boards and committee meetings, town staff trainings and council workshops, possible future staff office space, and also MSAD functions. We obviously see an expansion of the Recreation Department programming with our youth enrichment programs, expansion of winter, indoor, and outdoor family programming, adult enrichment and socialization programs, our summer camp staff training, and also some community-centered events and celebrations. A big part of this is Active Living Cumberland 55+, which is formally aging in place. And Devin Galvin has already reserved several dates beginning in April for some of the following. Mornings with Friends, her luncheons and tea and talk, cribbage and bingo, social hour mix and mingles, singing group and movie matinees, and maybe even possibly an adult prom. Of course, it will be used for the Valhalla Golf Course. We've kind of decided that any golf outings or tournaments that exceed 80 guests should move over to the Recreation Center instead of being crammed into Rachel's. For those that do move over, there will be a $5 per person surcharge built into the outing fee. Right now, we expect about 12 outings that will exceed the 80 people in the upcoming season. The Valhalla staff will be responsible for cleanup after these outings. Another use is we're hoping will be Recreation Center event rentals. We've come up with a maximum occupancy for the facility to be about 150 people. There will be no weekday event rentals from May 1 till October 15th, because during the golf season, there frankly just isn't enough parking there. We are considering summer rentals on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays only, but they would be after 5 o'clock with a maximum of 50 people. A rental application will be required, and if approved, a signed lease agreement will also be required. And this will be similar to the agreement that we use for the West Cumberland Hall now. It's just been amended for the Recreation Center, sorry. And the Recreation Department will coordinate all bookings. We'll obviously work closely with Valhalla and Rachel's to make sure there's no overlapping, we don't have any problems with parking or anything. So the event rental fee structure, I apologize, this is a little wordy, but I wanted you to be able to see all the tiers kind of on one page. This pricing is for a 3-hour block of time. So for up to 50 people, for Cumberland and North Yarmouth residents, the fee is $350 with $100 for each additional hour. Non-residents is $550 with $200 for each additional hour. For 50 to 100 people, the fee for residents is $500 with $175 for each additional hour, and non-residents $700 with $250 for each additional hour. For 100 to 150 people, for residents, the fee is $1,000 with $250 for each additional hour, and non-residents $1,500 with $350 for each additional hour. The security deposits are also tiered. So for up to 50 people, the security deposit is $200. 50 to 100 people, it's $350, and 100 to 150 people, it's $500. Some other items to note: the Recreation Center event fees will be placed in a special purpose account dedicated to facility-specific expenses. The Recreation Center renovations are anticipated to be completed by early April, assuming our countertops get in and we can hopefully replace our carpeting. Some examples of acceptable rentals for the Recreation Center are things such as birthday parties, baby showers, Greeley class reunions and sports banquets, fundraisers, auctions, etc. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, go ahead, Mike. And I will defer to my counterparts back here if it's anything that I can't answer.
Thanks for coming tonight, Patty. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions for you. What's the bathroom situation down at there? I know they were torn out at one point. And, are they going back in? Are they?
Yes, so right now we're just waiting on the countertops with the built-in sinks to come in, and they're thinking early April. I believe the toilets are all set, all rebuilt.
Okay.
Another thing to note is there is no kitchen down there. So any events that happen, you would either use Rachel's as your caterer, or it's kind of a carry-in, carry-out.
So I've got one concern with your proposal is no golf tournaments during the week. And
No, it's no event rentals during the week,
no, why is that?
because there simply just isn't enough parking to hold an event during a regular golf day. If they have a full tea day, the parking lot is full by 11 in the morning.
Okay.
So we can use it for some adult programming, or even if maybe even some things with the youth enrichment where parents are just dropping children off. But we won't have event rentals in the summertime during golf season.
So if somebody wanted to do a golf tournament on a Wednesday, under this proposal, they can't or can do it?
No, they can, because that would already be on the books.
Okay.
So if there's a golf tournament that has over 80 people in it, they can use the recreation center. I mean, anyone can use it, but we're suggesting that anything over 80 people use the actual recreation center instead of Rachel's. But there'll be outings all summer like normal using Rachel's.
Okay.
We're not,
make
we're
sense?
trying to get away from the traffic that comes with trying to use the banquet center when the tee sheet's full. Because most of those parking spaces are full now. You go there at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's hard to find a place to park. So that was the real big driver here. We just didn't have any additional parking spaces. If somebody wanted to hold an event or, something over 100 people, would be really hard to find the parking down there in addition to a full parking lot already. So the golf basically takes precedence from May till October, and then after that, we're fine.
Yeah, I just want, thanks, Bill, and thank you, Patty. I just want to make sure that if somebody wants to hold a golf tournament, they don't hold it during the
Absolutely.
weekend. We want it during the week, and
Yeah, we want them.
which I think brings me to my last, I don't know if it's even a question, but if somebody comes in with a golf tournament and wants to rent the hall, where are they going to be in the pricing structure?
That's the $5 surcharge. So
what,
if someone schedules a golf outing with Nick at Valhalla and they use the recreation center, there's a $5 surcharge that would be added to the golf fee to pay for the use of the recreation center.
Thank you, Madam.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because the most we can hold is like usually 144. That fills up the whole golf course, 144 golfers.
Right, I'm thinking, Bill, this summer, I know they've got maybe a Wounded Warrior.
They got some big tournaments.
Yeah, and they're going to need that spillover, just.
Absolutely. They'll take the whole thing. They'll take the whole thing. They typically use it for registration. They use it for lunches. They use it for, pretty much in and out. And that's why I think these guys came up with a per golfer fee instead of trying to figure out which number you fall under. So $5 a head, and that basically takes care of our maintenance and our cleaning of that facility for that golf event. So
Perfect,
I
thank
think
you,
it
guys.
works
Yeah,
out
and
pretty
Nick
well.
already has those on the Valhalla calendar. We'll all be sharing calendars, so we know what's going on all the time.
Good. Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome.
I guess, oh, go ahead, Shirley. Nope.
So no summer weddings at Valhalla.
Well, if it's a very,
No.
we're trying to not be in the
And
wedding
if you were to have a
business.
baby shower on a Sunday morning, that probably wouldn't happen either,
Correct, not in the summer.
right? How are these fees comparable to the West Cumberland Hall's fee structure?
They're quite a bit higher. Right now, West Cumberland Hall is $125 for a 3-hour block, I believe.
Okay. All right. The difference in the numbers and the fee structure change, I understand it. I'm not sure we need 3 categories. I wonder if 2 categories might make it, but I'll
Well,
go
we
with
went
your
back and forth with that
recommendations
too,
for
but we
now.
felt like if there was a group that only had 60 people, we didn't want them to pay like an astronomical amount, so we kind of came down to the 3. And then anything over 100 people, it definitely creates more wear and tear on the space. You want to say anything about the fee?
As my question, another kind of comparison is kind of to the North Yarmouth Rec Center, kind of how do these fees compare?
Ours are a bit higher. Theirs are a little different because their fees are sort of per room.
Right, and they have like classroom type sizes. Okay.
Mhm.
Do we have a sense of if and how having this be a public rental option impacts insurance or any liability? I know we're signing something that releases us from liability in the lease, but any impact?
Chris has had, the assistant managers had discussions with our insurer. Chris can share that.
We've been in communication with Clark Insurance, the one that carries our insurance. Of course, the insurance company wants us to have it additionally insured by everybody, but also it can be a case-by-case basis, and they recommend it in the larger events, 100 to 150, where our liability could be higher. The smaller events, where it's a baby shower, looking for folks to pay an additional $150 for a carrier or a binder is probably really not something we're going to do. But they did say we are covered. Our liability kicks in for the whole golf course. It's just on the large events, just to be additionally insured, and naming the town of Cumberland as an additional insured on the property is what they're recommending, and we'll probably institute that.
Makes sense.
I have another question. So if we're only going to charge the golfers a $5 surcharge, then I think maybe we should readjust the rental fee structure for other residents to be $250, $500, and $750. Those are the maximum numbers, and that's a $5 per person for the maximum number. Something to think about. If you're only charging golfers $5, you shouldn't be charging residents more than that.
Well, they're paying more than $5. They're in the 65 to 75 plus food on top of
Yeah,
that.
well, I just went with the maximum, like 50 people times 5 is 250.
Yep, yep.
100 people times 5 is 500, and 150 is 750. It's just something to think about to keep it equitable.
We look at it as the golfers are already being charged to use the facility. This is just an additional $5 to be able to go into the banquet hall to do their thing at the end. So a lot of what we charge the golfers is already being charged ahead of time. So it's, a lot of that's gonna be $85 per golfer. That is now $90. So we're getting something for the hall as well, where normally we didn't charge anything additional. And I think we had up to 10 events with the MSGA under an agreement over the years, which we never charged, and the MSGA never charged us. So this is really an additional charge to help us gain some revenues for the facility, to help offset some of the costs to the facility, so it's not all being borne by the taxpayers. So I agree with you, and maybe we could look at that, and maybe that fee per golfer is not high enough, But I think we're pretty close to
Okay.
the area average on what we should charge for the building itself. I mean,
Okay.
some of the wedding venues.
That's all I ask, is that we think about it,
Definitely.
make sure it's fair. You know me, I'd try to get more money out of people if I could.
Yeah, we were also trying to avoid to become a wedding venue only because of the wear and tear when you're renting to folks that aren't connected to our community. And I
Well,
think
and
we were
who
trying to stay away
wants our
from
rec department having to deal with Bridezilla?
Yes. Yeah, no one wants to run around town picking up all that stuff. I just think this is a better use of it as a community facility versus
No, I
a
agree.
outside.
But I think if you get too high, like, you know, a baby shower for the Story family is not, it's gonna be more than 50 people. I mean, we had 87 chairs saved for family at the funeral, and that wasn't enough. So, you know, I mean, we'd be in the next category
Right.
anyway, but I think we want people to use it for those kinds of things. So we need to,
I have a question. What's the head count, Bill, or where does the threshold start for someone having to get a mass gathering permit?
It's, mass gathering is outside events for mass gathering, and it's 500, so.
So if the PGA came in and wanted to use Valhalla
Mass
for a
gathering.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
Yeah, a tournament doesn't get up to 500. We can't accommodate that many golfers. But when you get into like the Corn Ferry tours and those
Yep.
type of things, you know, they bring hundreds and hundreds of people with them and spectators. And so far, we haven't gotten there. It's a good thing.
Pipe dream.
I guess I know that, oh, go ahead. Did you have a question?
I don't,
Oh.
no, thank you.
I was say, I think the motion, I know Shirley, you had a comment or question on the fees, and so I think the motion would be to accept as written. So is there anything we would want to adjust at this time and/or let it ride and request a revisit at a certain period? I want to make sure.
I think we should take it as it is and revisit it a year from now. Let it, see if there's a successor or not. That would be my thought on that.
I wouldn't mind doing a revisiting. Revisiting.
I'll give you a motion.
Sure. Go for it.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the use policy and fee structure for the Valhalla Recreation Center.
Second.
Questions or comments?
good with this. I think we revisit when we look at the budget.
Well, yeah, and I'm curious, if we get requests from civic groups for exemptions from fees, they could come to you. It's your policy.
Mhm.
So then you could do it on a case-by-case basis, and if you feel it's worthwhile, then it's your call, and we just deal with it. So it's your policy, and we can revisit it anytime, but if somebody comes to Patty and says, look, I'm so-and-so, and I should be exempt from this because I do fundraising for whatever, it puts the onus on the person to come back to the elected body and say, hey, this is my request, and people can rebuke that or just say, thanks, but that's not how we operate. Or, yeah, it's a great idea, it's a great cause, we'll be happy to waive the fee. It's your call.
I think that's great. I think especially where you said, things like community celebrations or, things like that, that throws it back to us. Yes, that's ridiculous to charge that for, these kids who've just won an award for setting up robots that do amazing things. I don't know. Babbling here.
No, I think, yes, I do. This, good stuff. I think it's exciting we have the space, and now let's use it and get the community in there. And like you said, Devon's all about it.
She's already filled the calendar.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Thank you. 23-019 to authorize the town manager to accept payment for delinquent fiscal year 2019 taxes in the amount of $300 on property identified as map U19, lot 18.
This is the same request you've had over the past few months. The resident continues to try to chip away at it, and as past practice, you guys have encouraged that, so that's why it's here before you. Since the property's in foreclosure, it requires your approval to allow these monies to be applied to the oldest taxes on our book.
So read, Madam Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor? Thank you. Moving to new business, just wanted to note for the town council budget workshops that they will begin from 5 to 7 p.m. So prior to our council meetings beginning March 27th. So that's the 27th of March, April 10th, and April 24th. We also did move the kind of final review before potentially being adopted by the council to Saturday, April 29th at 8 a.m. Also wanted to note that nomination papers are available on March 2nd and must be returned by April 13th. There are 2 council openings or positions up for election, as well as 2 school board positions as well. I will start with you, Shirley. Or do you want me to go the other way?
Sure, I was just checking my calendar. Really, the only thing I have to share tonight is a sincere and heartfelt thank you to Bill Shane and the town staff, especially Chris, and all the people who helped get Valhalla ready, get toilets flushing and sinks running for my dad's celebration of his life. Valhalla was such a fitting place for it. He would have rather had it at the barn, but it's a little too cold this time of year. But he was for you new people, he was the very first person to swing a club when the golf course became a public facility. They had the ribbon cutting, and then he stepped up to the tee with Dave Higgins Sr., brand new driver, and on his backswing, snapped it in half.
I didn't know him well, but I feel like that is very fitting.
You know, if I ever write his biography, the title's going to be Large and in Charge. He was just such a presence, not only in my life, but I feel like in the community. And people saw so many parts of him that they just keep sharing. Like one of our neighbors sent me this nice note about how he had left the council, but she was being charged some fee to work out a setback disagreement, and he came and spoke on her behalf and told us that that was ridiculous. And I was sitting here as well. Ron, you were sitting here, but she just wrote that she had such an appreciation for him, as you know, he really just had the people in his mind and heart all the time when he was doing his work. And he was all about work. The man, even when he played, he was working. He was a Shriner, you know, so his play involved raising money for, you know, sick kids or, but the town and the citizens, the people who have reached out that I just had no expectation. Even in his passing, he's still giving back to the town, because in lieu of flowers, we asked that donations be made to our family scholarship fund. And the generosity of spirit of this town is overwhelming. And as I said at the beginning of the meeting, it really hasn't sunk in. I'm still in that place. It's not a bad place. It's just that place. The staff at Rachel's put out a great spread. The police escorts were a nice touch. Don Foster and his staff at the school helped with setup the morning of his funeral, which was at the middle school. And he was in his work clothes watching the funeral from the back of the room, and I said, oh, Dad would have loved that. you know, because it didn't matter what kind of person you were. Everyone deserves respect, and I just keep replaying the day over and over. But thank you all who were there and who reached out to me personally, and continue to support us as a family. My mom is doing great. She's an amazing woman. She'll be 90 next month in a couple weeks. She said then she'll be old. My siblings, we've all made it through without killing one another. There's 6 of us, and we did it. We did it, and we're still talking to each other. It's just incredible. So thank you all, and thank you to the town. I mean, you are what Cumberland's all about.
What's that? Madam Chair, I just have 2 condolences notices, and one is condolence to the Calder family. Tom Calder grew up in Shebig Island, went to school here at Cumberland. Milt Calder's brother passed away way too early. And the other one is to Dolly Daigle, lived just down the street from Shirley, raised her 4 kids here in Cumberland. She and Jack lived in Middle Road for many, many years, very involved in the community. Mrs. Daigle taught school.
Yeah.
And so my condolences to Jeff and the rest of the kids. And
Number 1 Middle Road, they were the only odd-numbered house on that side of the road.
Yep.
Although one's neither even nor odd, but
that's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
by definition.
Thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Bob.
I was just thinking about the age of your father and some of the other folks that were of similar age, and two names come to mind, Dick Sweetser and Dick Peterson. The number of people that, live to be 90, that's few to begin with, and the number of people who serve their community for 90 years is even fewer. And your father was certainly, he left the bar high. So, it's anybody who wants to follow in his footsteps. There's some expectation that it doesn't come easy, and it doesn't come cheap, and it doesn't come quick. It's going to take a long time. I did go to Tom Calder's funeral. It was a very nice service. It was like an old-time get-together. I couldn't get over how many people that I knew there, and the sense of loss of losing Shebig Island was palatable. But anyways, it was a nice time to see some old friends. And that's all I've got.
Nothing from me. Mr. Cobb?
I too attended Harlan's Celebration of Life, and I learned some interesting history. Harlan quit school when he was in high school to go to work to support his family. My great-uncle Philip was in Harlan's class, and he too quit school at the same time that Harlan did to go to work in the woods. And I think they referred to it as the Shawtown School, but I'm not sure of that. I can remember my uncle telling me stories about he and Harlan on who was bigger, because my uncle was a great big man, not quite as big as Harlan, but almost. And they would go out and wrestle in the parking lot. And they remained friends all through school, but when Harlan left to go to work in the woods, my uncle said, "Harlan's making more money than I am, and I'm going to work." And he did. He quit school and he went to work in the woods. And my uncle passed away about 4 years ago. And when he passed away, he was at the shop 6 months before he passed. And he says, "Do you ever see Harlan?" I said, "Every council meeting." And I told him the story about Harlan coming into the dais one night. And he walked up to the podium and he slammed his fist down and he says, "I'm pissed." And I'll never forget that. But everybody respected what he had to say. And you could just tell by his mannerism that he was quite upset about something, and I forget now what it was, and he got his point across. But he truly was an icon, Shirley. I mean, and he will be missed, but not forgotten, so
Thank you.
that's all I have. Plus my $20 for the food pantry, so.
Thank you. I wondered where that was.
I think the only additional item I have is just a reminder, as I mentioned, nomination papers are available on March 2nd, which is this week, that we are going to host on March 9th, so a week from this Thursday here. So it is a change of location. What is it to run and be part of kind of public office? I don't know, Shirley, if you'll join me again.
I'll try.
I believe
Peter Bingham.
Peter Bingham is going to join as well and kind of give the perspective for the school board. As I mentioned, we have 2 spots.
For every board in town.
Yeah, right, or any of them.
Peter.
Planning board, all of it. So do invite folks. I know Devin is kind of reaching out to her active living in Cumberland group, but it is open to the full public. So if you have questions about what it's like to serve on the council or the process of running for a council seat or a school board seat, that's really the objective of the conversation. It's an hour, if that, so come stop by. It's 5 to 6 here in the council chambers, Thursday the 9th. That is all I had.
Move to adjourn.
Anything from the manager?
April 12th joint meeting with North Yarmouth and the school board are we good with that? A lot of people replied, but some are still, we're waiting, so. that was
I'm
sent-
probably one of them.
Yeah, yes, you are.
I know I'm one of them.
So I just want to make sure you get it in your agendas that April 12th, there will be, there's proposed joint meeting with the SAD and the Town of North Yarmouth Board of Selectmen at Greeley. I'm not sure where it's going to be yet. I'm not sure the room that they have their televised meetings is large enough to have all of us plus the public. It has to be a public meeting, so I'm not sure where they're going to hold it. So we'll find out.
Okay. What time did you just say to me?
I think it's at 6 p.m.
Okay.
But I'll get a confirmation of location as well as starting time.
Okay.
And I think the agenda is going to be more the discussion about the school location in North Yarmouth and the upcoming budget.
Yes. That is what we have discussed for agenda. Awesome. I know I have a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.